Good afternoon. My name is Latice Bell, and I am Common to Wealth Consulting. Today, we're going to be addressing some very important concepts concerning funding for nonprofit organizations. But before I get into that, I want to explain a little bit about nonprofits or foundations and funding. It is important to know and to realize that to obtain grant funding from a private corporation or from the federal government, you have to have a 501c3. Grants are not utilized for personal business, I should say. You know how I think we've all seen those commercials online or on television, I should say, that speak about getting personal grants to buy a new car, or personal grants to start your own business, or personal grants to get out of debt. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a myth. However, there are educational grants. If you are seeking to pursue an undergraduate degree and you apply for financial aid, there is grant funding for that. But that is done through another process. Grants are mainly given to not-for-profit organizations that have 501c3 status. What is 501c3 status? 501c3 status is obtained through the Internal Revenue Service. It is a process by which you have to complete a 1023 application in order to be considered for federal tax exempt status. The first step that an individual or group of members need to do in order to get a 501c3 status is you have to file articles of incorporation with your state. For instance, in the state of California, that is the very first step. Articles of incorporation with the California Secretary of State. Once you hear back from the state, then you proceed to the next step to obtain a federal tax exempt number, which is your 501c3. Now, I found out recently that it's a little bit different from state to state. So if you're interested in becoming a not-for-profit organization, you may want to check with your state, your Secretary of State. Okay, now, as far as nonprofit organizations obtaining funding, this is a myth as well. Just because you have your 501c3 does not mean that instantaneously that you will be awarded funding. It does not work that way. It's not just about obtaining that federal tax exemption. There's a lot more that is involved with that. So, in order to get to the meat and potatoes, I'll explain a little bit. If you want to know more beyond that, then you'll have to reach out and contact me. You can contact me via telephone, or you can contact me via email, and I'll explain all of that at the end of this presentation. There are three major components that you must have. The first, or one of the first components that you must have in order to obtain funding successfully is you have to have collaborators, excuse me. You have to have partnerships with other organizations. No longer does the federal government or even private entities give out money to organizations that don't have partnerships. It's very important to network and to build relationships with other organizations in the neighborhood, especially if your organization has a similar vision or purpose as a neighboring organization. That's number one. Number two, you have to have a plan of sustainability. What does this mean? This simply means that before an organization will give you money, they want to know if you're able to maintain on your own. I typically tell my clients that it would be good to have at least $50,000 to $100,000 in the bank. Okay, you say, well, Latice, that's the whole purpose of writing. So my next thing that I tell them, I share with them that they need to have a viable marketing and advertising plan. No longer can we as nonprofit organizations depend on grant funding alone. I truly believe that grant funding in conjunction with social entrepreneurship is extremely important. What is social entrepreneurship? Social entrepreneurship is simply taking a for-profit venture for nonprofit causes. It's a way of the organization being able to sustain itself rather than depending on the government or some other outside agency to fund your project. That's number 2, sustainability. And number 3, which is actually probably the most important, you have to have, I must say again and again and again, you have to have some sort of evidence-based practice in your initiative, in the description of your program. This is very important, people. This is where most of the clients that I consult with miss it. You say, what is evidence-based practices? Evidence-based practice is a theory or concept that proves that what you're planning on doing is effective. It's already proven. Funders want to know that what you're proposing to do to alleviate or eradicate an issue, a social issue or economic issue or matter of concern in your communities actually works. For instance, let's say that I want to work with at-risk youth. Well, what is it about at-risk youth that I want to deal with? That's broad. You have to narrow it down. So let's say I want to talk about, or I'm proposing a program that will help youth ages 18 to 25 stay out of incarceration, because we know that the rate of recidivism is pretty high. So in order to convince funders or to have an effective program, I need to utilize or implement services or service that has been proven to work in order to decrease the rate of recidivism. Yes, I know you must be saying, oh, geez, Latice, that's a lot of information. Well, that's why I'm here, to assist you in furthering your cause and implementing an effective evidence-based practice program. So there you have it. If you want more information, please feel free to contact me at area code 213-973-3598, or you can contact me via email at the letter C, number 2, wconsulting@gmail.com. We are Common to Wealth Nonprofit Management Services. We are a program affiliate of Blessed Without Limits, Inc. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, you must have 3 components, 3 solid, very important components that are not placed in any particular order, but that is number 1, sustainability, number 2, collaborations with other neighboring entities, and number 3, a solid evidence-based practice initiative or theory or theoretical standpoint. Thank you, and that's all for now.